like to come up? Thank you. So Nur Warsame has been active as an Imam in Australia since 2000 and is the founder of Marhaba Inc, an organisation that focuses on the welfare of LGBTQI Muslims. Nur conducts workshops and talks for LGBT groups nationally and internationally and campaigns for places of safety and support for LGBTQI Muslims. Okay, thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most merciful, most gracious. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land and pay my respects to all elders, past and present. Thank you very much for inviting me, and Joe, thank you very much. I cannot follow the passionate words that you have said. I also would like to start with a quote of Martin Luther King, where he said, "One cannot be advocating for justice for some and not advocating for justice for all." Since May 17th, 2004, the changes that have occurred are immense. Great progress has been made and achieved in raising awareness of violence, discrimination, and the repression of LGBTIQ plus individuals around the world. This progress of humanity has facilitated platforms and opportunities for change in many areas, such as adoption, marriage equality, inheritance, and insurance rights. There is still certainly a great deal more to be done. Many countries, including my country of origin, Somalia, still criminalize homosexuality and often persecute LGBTIQ plus individuals violently. At least 75 or 76 countries still consider homosexuality illegal. 7 of such countries, it is punishable by death. Transphobia is still very common. One country I recently visited is India, where the Supreme Court has decriminalized homosexuality. But in India, when at the Mughal Empire in the 1800s, when the Mughal Empire was in India, when the colonial powers came, they found a community that were respected for many, many years. A community that was called the Hijra community. And with the stroke of a pen, the colonial powers came with what's called the Criminal Tribes Act of 1851 or something like that. Google it if you have a chance. And the ramifications of that act is still visible in that region, particularly Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. The transgender community is most oppressed in questionable types of employment, such as prostitution, begging. And interestingly, in 2009, the Supreme Court of Pakistan, one of the most conservative Muslim countries in the world, said that these individuals have been oppressed for a very long time because under the Islamic law, they lose their right to inheritance because they're not even considered male or female. So haqqul irth is called haqqul mirath, the right of inheritance they're deprived of. So in 2009, the Supreme Court judges said this is unfair. That they went into an area that was not their field, which is the medical field, but it was a step in the right direction. So in that region, there is still a lot of work to be done. When one visits whether you go to India, whether you go to Pakistan, whether you go to Bangladesh, it is very visible. So it was a step in the right direction, I believe, for the Indian government to repeal the colonial code that had existed from the 1800s. I also follow what Joe said about solidarity. What we need to do, I think, on individual basis and as on institutions and as a system of government is to, when one is in a privileged position, with every privilege comes responsibility. grassroots justice defenders in this country and many other places in the world continue to work, continue to do work that many have been tiptoeing around for a long time. As an Imam, the topic of LGBTIQ plus issues has been an issue that many Imams have tiptoed around. And it is said that there's 8 or 9 gay Imams around the world. I've met all of them, but believe me, there are many more than 8 or 9. I studied in Al-Azhar University, the oldest Islamic university in the world, with boys' accommodation, 14, 15 years old, testosterone in the air. There are many more than 8 or 9 Imams. Imam Muhsin Hendricks is a dear friend. He started his activism in Cape Town in South Africa in 1992, in an area where, I finished memorizing the Quran in Johannesburg. I cannot imagine how he has been doing the work that he has since 1992. Imam Lutovic, he started his activism in France, Paris. He started the first LGBT-friendly mosque in Paris, France. Farouk Kaki is a human rights lawyer and an Imam based in Toronto, Canada. Has been started Salam Canada, Salam initially Toronto, then Salam Vancouver, in the early 90s as well. And Imam Da'i Abdullah was based in Washington, D.C. He started his activism 30 years ago. And when I say 30 years ago, it was before I was born. So some of these individuals, they live in conflict zones, yet their work continues. Even though most of them depend on justice to live under the constant threat that they are living under. They need funding from the governments and other institutions and philanthropic organizations that will not interfere with their work, or that will not dominate their work. Protection to continue, they need the funding and protection to continue the noble work without their work being captured or interfered with. Grassroots justice defenders need to protect, and they need to protect their individual members that they work with, who promote peace and security in the society. Because if they do not do the work, then we will not have peace achieved as a collective society. And I would like to end with what Martin Luther King said, that there is true peace. He said that true peace is not merely the absence of tension, but it is the presence of justice. So if we want to have true peace in this country, we need to support the people who are doing work that we are not capable of doing, others. So when I remember starting Marhaba, for example, in November 2013, I analyzed the risks, the consequences carefully. I have been active as an Imam in this country since 2001, and I knew the threats would be very quick. I didn't think it would come within the second or third month, but they were almost immediate. However, it was some of the risks that I was willing to live with. What I could not accept was somebody being demonized in the name of my religion, or somebody that is told that they will be entering hell because of their sexuality. God Almighty He has, in the Quran, we have an angel who is the gatekeeper of hell and an angel who's the gatekeeper of heaven. None of them are named Scott Morrison or... So God can defend himself, and God does not need a human being to say to them who will enter hell or who will enter heaven. However, I thought, how can I get my message into the areas where the trauma initially starts from, which is homes. And I thought, how could I use my story? I didn't think it was going to save lives. However, I am humbled to say that just by me standing up saying to young people that you can be whoever you want to be, no one has the right to tell you what you do in your bedroom is an abomination or a sin. And thankfully that saved lives, it united families, and alhamdulillah, praise be to God, it restored faith in many young people's hearts that have lost faith. And the work continues. So I second what Joe said. We need to work together. And when we think of solidarity and diversity, I always like to give the example of the human body. The human body is made of different organs, the heart, the lungs, etc. And all these organs work in complete harmony for the well-being of this one body. Imagine you wake up one morning and the brain says, okay, I'm not going to listen to the other parts. Or the heart says, I'm this color, I'm not going to. It doesn't work that way. So once we work together, inshallah, we will provide healing for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.